All right, what's going on, guys? Fantasy Umpire Danny Kitchen here. This is the first time I've ever gone live on YouTube, really live on any platform, but definitely first time on YouTube. And so this is going to be a bumpy ride here. So bear with me as I get started. I'm literally blocking the background that I tried to set up here with my Giants memorabilia and whatnot. So let me see. Maybe if I position it this way, that might be a little better for you. Although maybe people don't want to see the Giants memorabilia and I can just block that with my own head. Anyway, that's not why you're here. I got to give you the recap of week 1 of the NFL season. I'm going to move this just a little bit here. Let's see if we can get this in the background. There we go. Maybe that'll help. Maybe not. And so, yeah, what I want to do is every week I'm going to come on here. I'm not sure if it's going to be on YouTube Live. That would be awesome if I could do that. And just kind of give you the rundown, key takeaways from the week, obviously from a fantasy football lens, taking a deep dive into each matchup. Obviously, we had 16 games in week 1, but with the bye weeks coming up, it won't be that massive of a schedule to go through. And so this first video may take a little bit longer than the other ones, but let's dive right in. I know my backdrop isn't as nice as it could be, which is a shame, but again, first time on YouTube Live, so bear with me. I don't really know how else to do this here, but I'm going to be blocking something no matter where I go. So and this is late here. I'm obviously it's live, so you can see, but it's Wednesday, September 11th. We're looking at almost 10 o'clock at night here. So a little bit later than I wanted to do. Missed out on the waiver rush on Tuesday. So ideally, I'd like to do these every week on Monday so that you guys can all get your waiver claims in Tuesday and stay ahead of that. But let's dive right in. I'm going to start in order of the games as they happen. So first game of the week was Ravens at Kansas City. The Chiefs really brought brought everything they could in this one. And, they were able to use their rookies. Xavier Worthy got off to a hot start there in limited action, although he played more than I was expecting. But I think the story here for those drafting in the early rounds, specifically at running back, is Derrick Henry. I was a huge believer in Henry. I still am. I think that this was a byproduct of the game script here. We saw Kansas City, jump out to that early lead after Henry's initial touchdown, and the Kansas City defense really held the Ravens in check, aside from Lamar running like crazy. He had 122 rushing yards on 16 attempts. So we're not going to see that every week. If I'm a Derrick Henry owner, I'm not worried here. He had 46 yards and a touchdown. So consider this a floor week for him, and still having almost 11 fantasy points. He was basically a zero in the passing game. I don't think he had any catches. So we can expect that to go up as well. We're not going to see Justice Hill getting 6 catches for 50 yards like he did in week 1 going forward. So not going to panic on Derrick Henry. Love what I saw from Lamar Jackson. He looked good. And then obviously the story here is Isaiah Likely, 9 catches, 111 yards and a touchdown. They looked fantastic. The connection between Lamar and Isaiah. So I think a lot more of that is coming. I spoke about this in the preseason rundown of the Ravens. I thought they were going to go more 2 tight end sets. They were going to go heavy. Obviously, Derrick Henry, you bring him in, you want to run between the tackles. And in order to do that successfully, a lot of times you have to bring in that second tight end. So this offense is going to be electric, but it's going to be funneled through 3 or 4 players. It's going to be Derrick Henry, Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, better days ahead. Don't worry about him too much, although he didn't look very quick to me. It was clear that Isaiah Likely was the more athletic of the two. And then Zay Flowers, 6 catches for 37 yards. Not what you were hoping for there. Obviously, you weren't drafting him in the 5th or 6th, or I even saw him go in the 7th round in one of my leagues. You're not drafting him there expecting that kind of production. So I think that's going to increase as the season goes along. But also, this is a Ravens offense that's going to be very ground heavy. We're going to see some games where Derrick Henry gets 20, 25 carries. I know Harbaugh came out and said, listen, we're not going to give Henry 30 carries a game. And I believe him, but I think between 20 and 25, when the Ravens get an early lead and try to milk the clock late in games, it's going to be with Henry. So no worries there. With the Chiefs, I mean, it's exactly what we thought it was going to be. Isaiah Pacheco is a bell cow, 45 yards and a touchdown on the ground for him. He was used heavily in the passing game, a couple of catches, 33 yards. Could have been even bigger for him. Rashee Rice is basically this year's Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's what a lot of people in the fantasy community have been saying. I completely agree. He has always been mispriced in the offseason, going in the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. He started to creep up to the 4th and 3rd rounds as his legal matters started to become less of an issue in terms of his pending suspension, or I guess we'll have to wait and see how that legal process plays out. But it looks like he'll be suspended next year as opposed to this year. So Rashee Rice was a steal, should have been a 2nd round pick. You got him as late as the 7th round, early in the summer. And then he started to creep up into the 4th and 3rd rounds when we got closer to August. So that was a steal. Xavier Worthy, the rookie from Texas, I was all over him. I'm in 2 leagues, one high stake, one league with some Syracuse buddies. He was the guy targeted in both leagues. He got him in, 8th, 9th rounds, I believe. Absolute steal. He is going to be their Swiss Army knife. They're going to be using him the same exact way that the Detroit Lions are going to be using Jameson Williams. I tweeted that actually before Jameson went off on Sunday night. And I think the two are very comparable. I think their style, their build, their profiles, how they're going to be used in the offenses. So I think these guys should be valued about, and the play calling too. Look at Ben Johnson with the Lions. I think he's probably the only offensive coordinator that I would trust more than the Chiefs at this point to get his playmakers the ball. He just knows how to get it done. So Xavier Worthy, if you're redrafting today, he probably goes in the 4th and 5th rounds. So if you got him in the 7th, 8th, 9th rounds, absolute steal. Not worried about Patrick Mahomes. I know he didn't light it up, 291 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, but it was week 1. He didn't do much on the ground. He didn't need to. They knew they had this game later on. And I know it was close, and the Ravens almost tied it up late there. They were a toenail away from tying that game and potentially going for 2 and winning it. But I think that's pretty much what to expect. If you drafted Travis Kelce, do not expect the old Travis Kelce. This is what you're going to get. 3 for 34. He's probably going to be more productive than that in the box scores, but just by the eye test, he looks slower. I don't think he's going to ever have those monster 3 touchdown games. Maybe he has a couple where he looks like the vintage Trav, but to me, this offense is going to be more well-rounded. They want to use the deep threats. Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy to help open up the middle for Rashee Rice. That will lead to a lot of good games for Travis, but I'm not expecting a lot of monster games. Nothing much to really report outside of those 3 guys. Noah Gray, 3 for 37. Justin Watson, 1 catch for 25 yards. Samaje Perine, 1 for 10. And yeah, that's about it. Carson Steele saw a couple of carries. I know he was a rookie that a lot of fantasy people had their eyes on, but for the most part, that was it. And, fantastic opening game. But, I think there's going to be a lot of change between now and week 2 and beyond. So I think we have to temper expectations just a bit there. And then the second game I want to highlight, Green Bay Packers against the Philadelphia Eagles. This one was in Brazil, the first game in Brazil for the NFL. It did not really go as they had planned. The field looked awful. It looked like it was slippery. You saw guys slipping all over the field. It was an absolute mess. We're lucky that we didn't see a star player with a major injury. We've seen some close calls and some of the other international games for the NFL. So glad to see most of these guys came out of that game without any serious injuries there. But, obviously Jordan Love, he had his leg rolled up on. I believe that I believe that was Jordan Davis on the Eagles that rolled up on his leg late in that game. That was not the field that caused that. That was some people are calling it dirty. I think it was certainly not a great play by Davis, but he was trying to bring him to the ground. So Jordan Love got hurt late in that one. Looks like he's only going to miss a couple of weeks, whereas it could have been pretty bad. But he had a great game. Jordan Love, 260 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. The guy that he was latching onto there was Jaden Reed. So the whole offseason, we were talking about which Packers wide receiver do we want to roster, and it was Romeo Doubs, it was Christian Watson, the deep threat, it was Dontavian Wicks, it was a little bit of Jaden Reed. It turns out it should have been Jaden Reed. He clearly was the most explosive receiver there. He had one nice run, 33 yards for a touchdown on an end around. Again, another guy that is going to be used like Jamison Williams in Detroit, like Xavier Worthy in Kansas City. He's a playmaker. Get the ball in the playmaker's hands. It's not that complicated. You do need to scheme those guys open and make sure that you get them the rock once the defense is kind of zoned in on them. But it's a great thing to see. Terrible that Jordan Love got hurt late in this one, but he'll be back soon. Jaden Reed is an absolute stud. Treat him as a wide receiver too until Jordan Love is back, and then immediately back into the top 15 wide receivers in fantasy. Romeo Doubs, 4 for 50, nothing much there. Tucker Kraft, 2 for 37. Christian Watson did have a touchdown that saved his day, but other than that, didn't really do much. 3 catches for 13 yards. Dontavian Wicks, the goose egg, 0 catches in this one. Josh Jacobs looked pretty good on the ground, 16 carries, 84 yards, averaged 5.2 yards per carry, but he had a couple of big runs to kind of, make that line look a little better than it was. Emmanuel Wilson, who was the change of pace back for them, had 4 carries for 46 yards. He looked explosive, 11.5 yards per carry for him. And, obviously don't forget about Marshawn Lloyd, the rookie. He was inactive for this one. Looks like he's dealing with a little bit of an injury. He might even be going on the IR. I believe that was discussed this week for them. So we'll see when he is back and healthy and he gets a run at the starting running back job, or at least the backup gig with Jacobs there. I think he is going to outperform Jacobs by the end of the season and take over that starting role. But for right now, if you drafted Josh Jacobs, you're feeling pretty good. He looked all right to me. On the Eagles side of things, Jalen Hurts was all right, 20 of 34 passing, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 INTs. But the star here was Saquon Barkley, 24 carries, 109 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. For those of you that know me, I'm a Giants fan. If you couldn't tell behind me by all the helmets and the balls, there's a reason I'm not wearing my Giants jersey right now. Absolutely depressed after week 1. We let Saquon go. I was one of the guys, I'll raise my hand. I thought it was a smart move. You don't pay a running back like that later in his career, past his prime. Definitely not what the Giants need. The Giants need a quarterback right now. I think it would have been silly to have paid Saquon what he was looking to make. So I had no issue with them letting him go. Now letting him go to Philadelphia, obviously a little bit out of their control there, but it hurts that much more. He looks so good in that offense behind that O-line, extremely explosive. He looks like rookie season Saquon Barkley. So if you drafted him at that 1-2 turn, you are looking real good, especially if you paired him with someone like Devon Achane in the 2nd round. So Saquon looks like a stud, absolute league winner for me. And then the passing game, it was the usual. A.J. Brown went off, had that monster catch for a touchdown, 5 receptions, 119 yards in total. Devonta Smith, 7 catches for 84 yards. You're going to see these two guys with pretty interchangeable stat lines. One of them is going to go off with a touchdown. One of them's going to have a solid PPR game, and there's going to be games when both of them go off. So there's going to be very few duds in this offense, and there's going to be very few games where both do not at least hit their floor, and one of them will probably always hit their ceiling. So if you roster one of them, you're doing great. If you rostered both of them, you're doing even better. Dallas Goedert, 4 catches, 31 yards. Not a whole lot there. They didn't really need him. He was used on the line. He was blocking a lot more than usual. I expect his numbers to go up a little bit, but he's a tight end that I'm out on this year. I just think that he's taken a beating over his career. I think, like Travis Kelce, he is past his prime, and there's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. Goddard's going to get his, but the guy I want is A.J. Brown. And if you don't have him, Devontae Smith is the next one up. So Saquon also had a touchdown receiving in the receiving side of things here. Beautiful catch along the left side of the end zone. Great throw by Hurts, and Saquon looked like a slot receiver. So Philadelphia paid him like a wide receiver running back combo, and that's exactly how I think they're going to use him. 2 catches, 23 yards for him. 24 carries, 109 yards on the ground. Absolute animal. And this offense hasn't even used Jahan Dotson yet. So they're only going to get better. Really good showing by the Eagles. They immediately, in my opinion, should be in the top 4 or 5 in the power rankings heading into week 2. But I think that's pretty much it for my takeaways on that game. Panthers Saints. There's not a whole lot to talk about here for the Saints because it wasn't competitive for them. So I think 2 things can be true. I was wrong about Alvin Kamara. I was out on him this year. He looks like an absolute stud. Perfect fit in the Kubiak scheme. I was wrong about that. And so anyone that got Kamara late in drafts, and I saw him going as late as 5, 6, even the 7th round in a lot of fantasy drafts. So if you got him there, you are sitting pretty. And I would hold Kamara. I don't think he's a sell high just yet, but at the same time, that was an absolute cakewalk week 1 matchup for them. Derek Carr throws for 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. He looked great. Everyone looked great in this game, except for Chris Olave, 2 catches for 11 yards, which was shocking to see. But again, they didn't really need him. This is a bit of a fluky game. They kept it on the ground. Kamara, 83 yards and a touchdown. Jamal Williams, 38 yards and a touchdown. Taysom Hill had 5 carries for 35 yards. There was just no need to really air it out. So Rashid Shaheed kind of kicked things off for the entire NFL week 1 Sunday slate with that long opening touchdown. He finished with 3 catches for 73 yards and a touchdown. If you've been following me in the offseason, he's been one of my late round picks to target. He's going to have boom weeks. He's going to have bust weeks. I think there's going to be more boom than bust weeks this year for Shaheed. He is legit. He's not just a deep threat. He's got speed, great hands, really good after the catch. So I'm going to stand by what I said. I think Shaheed's the wide receiver to own. Obviously, Chris Olave is the alpha. He's the X there. But I think Shaheed has got a perfect fit for this offense and exactly what Derek Carr wants with that deep ball. So like him a lot. Kamara also added 5 catches, 27 yards. Juwan Johnson had a touchdown, 26 yards receiving for him. Foster Moreau, good to see him get in the end zone after battling with cancer and beating it. 4 catches for him, 43 yards. And again, the one outlier here is Chris Olave, 2 catches, 11 yards. Don't worry about it. If you roster Chris Olave, take the L there. Do not sell low on him. He's definitely a buy low for me. If you have a league mate who is getting antsy, lost week 1, Chris Olave was a big part of that. Trade for him. So I said that there wasn't a lot to talk about with the Saints, and then I babbled on and on about them. But what I want to talk about is the Panthers. Not what I was expecting at all. They bring in Dave Canales. He's the quarterback whisperer. He's the one who resurrected Baker Mayfield's career. He comes to Carolina. We all thought he was going to do the same thing with Bryce Young. So, and I'm guilty of it. I thought Bryce Young was going to turn things around. It felt like he didn't have the right coaching staff to help build him up in year 1. It does not seem like that was the case at all. So 161 yards passing, 13 of 30, 2 INTs. He was horrendous. Yeah, to me, I hope it turns around. That's a tough way to start off the season going to New Orleans. That's a pretty rough crowd. Huge home field advantage. One of the biggest in the NFL, if not the biggest home field advantage. So maybe we give him a pass, but he just looked uncomfortable. He looked slow, processing. He's a second or two slow, which is what you would expect for a rookie, but not a second year player. Um, he has a much better supporting cast. Deontay Johnson's there now. They gave him Xavier Legette in the draft. Jonathan Mingo's in his second season. Adam Thielen's the veteran. Just the excuses are kind of out the window now. We'll see what happens week 2. I hope they turn it around. I believe they are hosting the LA Chargers in week 2. So we shall see. That's not exactly an easy matchup, but they're going home. LA has to fly across the country for a Sunday 1:00 game Eastern time. So that's gonna be tough on them. So we'll see, but doesn't look good. I was out on everyone in Carolina outside of Deontay Johnson. I think a lot of the fantasy community was in on him, so let's be patient there again. 2 catches, 19 yards. Could have been a fluke. I'm not going to sell low on Deontay Johnson. I will buy high on him, just like Chris Olave. I want to see how this one plays out before I kind of throw in the towel there. And for the Saints, they go to Dallas next week. So easy week 1 matchup, very difficult week 2. That's going to be a good game. I think there's going to be a lot of points in that one. Derek Carr is way too comfortable against Carolina. He's going to be under duress all day long in Dallas. So really, really interested to see how he follows up that performance. He's not exactly the most consistent player in the NFL. So that'll be a really good test for him. And let's go to the 4th game on the slate here. My New York Giants hosting the Minnesota Vikings. The Giants were in this game for all of 30 seconds. I had the game on. I turned it off, and I flipped on Red Zone, and it was the best decision I made all day. They just look horrendous. It's the same old Giants. Daniel Jones looks uncomfortable. I didn't think the O-line did a terrible job. I thought he had a decent pocket for most of the day. I felt like his processor was a little bit slow. I felt like he rushed a couple of throws. His footwork was sloppy. And as usual, he has no pocket presence. So I don't know how much longer they're going to go before they pull the plug and turn to Drew Lock, but I'm praying for all those Malik Neighbors owners that it's sooner rather than later. Jones finishes the day with 186 yards passing. It was worse than that. He should have finished with 100. 2 touchdowns. It was worse than that. He should have had 3. Devin Singletary, 10 rushes for 37 yards. That's exactly what you're going to get with Devin. That's the most Devin Singletary stat line I've ever seen. Daniel Jones, 6 rushes for 15 yards. If you have him in fantasy, that's going to be your saving grace, is if he does it on the ground, because he sure as heck is not going to do it in the air. Wan'Dale Robinson had 1 run for 14 yards. Eric Gray, 2 for 6. Tyrone Tracy Jr., the stud rookie everyone's interested to see, 2 for 2. Keep an eye on him. Singletary, a few more games like this, he's going to start feeling the heat from Eric Gray and Tyrone Tracy. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the rookie climb those ranks as they try to give some of these young guys a chance to show their worth in what's already a lost season. Looking forward to week 1 of 2025 for all Giants fans. Malik Neighbors, the one bright spot, sort of 5 catches, 66 yards. That's not bad for a rookie debut. It's only going to get better for him. Wan'Dale Robinson, 6 for 44. He is going to be a target hog, I think, as long as Daniel Jones is there. Safe middle intermediate routes. He's going to be thrown behind the line of scrimmage, at the line of scrimmage, hoping that his guys can do all the work with yards after the catch, but not how you want to play quarterback in the NFL. Just pathetic. Theo Johnson, 1 for 18. That's his rookie debut. 4 for 15 for Singletary in the air. Eric Gray, 1 for 9. Tyrone Tracy, 1 for 5. They used all the running backs in the passing game. Bellinger, 1 for 3. Thought he was going to give us a little more there at the tight end spot. And then Darius Slayton, 3 for 26. So wide receiver group looks a little better than last year, but it seems like it's not going to matter as long as Daniel Jones is under center. Now, the Giants do play Washington week 2. I believe they go to Washington. Yes, they do. An offense, or I'm sorry, a defense, and specifically a secondary that was just torn to shreds by Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 1. Daniel Jones is not as good as Baker Mayfield. The Giants are not as good as the Buccaneers. I still feel like the Giants can put up some points in this one. So while I am so out on Daniel Jones, and I think we need to move on from that terrible experiment, brighter days ahead starting in week 2 in Washington for them. Minnesota on their side of things, it looked exactly as I thought it would. Sam Darnold is a perfect fit in the Kevin O'Connell offense. Ran it beautifully, 19 of 24, 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. He didn't need to do much. They were up so big, so fast on the Giants. They really just gave the rock to Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler late in this game and milked the clock. It was over by halftime. Aaron Jones, 94 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown on 14 carries. He looked fantastic if you got him late. Ty Chandler, 8 for 17. Jefferson didn't really do much. He had a pretty solid first half, 4 receptions, 59 yards, and a touchdown for him on the day. It could have been so much more, but again, they didn't need him to do anything. So if you drafted Justin Jefferson in the first 5 picks, you should feel really good because Darnold looks great. He's obviously going to gravitate towards Jefferson. He's going to look his way more often than not. But also, Jordan Addison leaves this game with an ankle injury. We'll see when he comes back, but it looked pretty serious. So 3 catches for him, 35 yards. Jefferson's going to be a target hog going forward. And Minnesota has the San Francisco 49ers coming to town in week 2. So a little bit different. Giants going from Minnesota to Washington. The Vikings have the exact opposite. They have a cakewalk first matchup with the Giants, and now they're really going to see what a real NFL team looks like in San Francisco week 2. And the only other thing I want to talk about here is Jordan Addison. Obviously, we touched on him, Justin Jefferson, but where else is the production going to come from? I think Aaron Jones is going to be used heavily in this offense, but keep an eye on Josh Oliver, 2 catches, 27 yards in this one. Sam Darnold likes to target his tight end. So I think at some point, one of these tight ends, him or Johnny Munt, will emerge, especially with Hawkinson being out for as long as he is, but something to keep an eye on there. But again, I think that covers pretty much all of my key takeaways for that game. Tough to say with the Vikings if they're legit or not playing a team like the Giants, but they certainly looked very good in this one. We can jump ahead to the Patriots, who went to the Bengals and beat the Bengals 16-10, ruining a lot of survivor pools. I know in my survivor pool, I took the Bengals, and 80% of the pool took the Bengals as well. So disappointed to see this result, but Pats brought it. They had a great game plan. They ran the ball. They gave Ramondre Stevenson 25 carries. He had 120 rushing yards and a touchdown. Didn't really ask Brissett to do much. 15 of 24, 121 yards in the air. He had 32 yards on the ground, so he looked pretty good. More mobile than I thought he was. And then not much in the receiving game. Austin Hooper led the team with 31 receiving yards. Decent rookie debut from Jalen Polk, just in terms of the film and the eye test. He certainly passes that there, but only 1 catch and 6 yards to show for it. So, a lot to be determined with this offense, but they didn't have to do that much here. The Bengals looked awful on offense. The Patriots could smell blood from the jump on defense. And I think, it was a great rookie head coaching debut for Gerard Mayo. And he had a really good game plan here and, really stuck it to the Bengals. Joe Burrow looked awful, 21 of 29, 164 yards. Saw him grabbing at his wrist. There's a video that went viral where he tries to pick up his water bottle and he needs a second hand. I don't think that's nothing. A lot of people are saying, it's no big deal. I think that's a problem. I don't see Joe Burrow finishing this season. I don't see him making it very far in the season, to be perfectly honest. He does not look right. I think it is the wrist. It's clearly bothering him. Keep an eye on it. If I own Jamar Chase, I don't feel terrible, but I'm certainly open to any trade offers from other league mates. And T. Higgins, obviously dealing with the hamstring injury. We'll see what Burrow looks like when he's back. But to me, I'm real nervous if I'm Cincinnati. That does not look good. On the ground, Zach Moss, 44 yards and a touchdown on 9 carries. He looks like the running back to own, although I think there are going to be spike weeks for Chase Brown as well. 3 for 11 for Brown. in this one on the ground. He added 3 catches for 12 yards in the air. Jamar Chase led the team with 62 yards receiving on 6 catches in this one. Josevich, 3 for 26. He was supposed to be kind of that sleeper pick for week 1 wide receivers. Mike Gesicki, 3 for 18, dropped a touchdown. Typical Mike Gesicki. Should have had it, just sloppy, didn't bring it in. And yeah, this offense just couldn't get it going, and the Patriots just kept it on the ground. If you drafted Ramondre Stevenson late in your drafts, you got an absolute steal. I was all over Stevenson. I said before, I wanted no part of this Patriots offense, and I stand by that. But if I had to have one piece, it was always Stevenson, clear as day. They're always going to be a running team, run first team in New England. And their O-line actually held up. I thought they were going to be bad. I thought Cincinnati would get more pressure, and they didn't. So it is what it is. Patriots get the win. Bengals now have to go to Kansas City at 0-1. They're going to be 0-2 after that game. I don't care what anyone says. Chiefs are going to smack them. And the Pats are hosting Seattle in week 2. So a tough test for the Patriots. They brought it week 1. They're going to have to really bring it week 2 in what I believe is one of the best defenses in the NFL, and certainly the best secondary. Their secondary is ridiculous in Seattle. So we'll see. If I'm a fantasy manager and I'm looking for a defense to stream, the Seahawks are a great one to target in week 2. And I think that pretty much covers Pats Bengals. We can jump ahead here. The next one on my list is Steelers at Atlanta. I feel like the story here is Kirk Cousins. We have to start there. He looked terrible coming off that Achilles injury. He had, he had not a lot of time to throw. TJ Watt was in the backfield on every single play. He was an absolute menace. I'd be surprised if he doesn't win Defensive Player of the Week. But even still, I just didn't like the way Cousins looked. He wasn't pushing off that plant foot, wasn't getting anything on his throws. It was all upper body. It looked like he didn't trust his legs. He finishes with 155 yards, a touchdown, and 2 INTs. He was 16 of 26 passing. I'm real nervous about Kirk Cousins. The second they drafted Michael Penix, you should have been nervous if you were a Kirk Cousins owner, especially in Dynasty. But after watching that, I'm real nervous about him. Nervous if I'm a Kyle Pitts owner, even though he had a touchdown in this game. Nervous if I'm a Drake London owner. Even Bijan. Bijan had a great game, but his ceiling will be capped if Kirk Cousins can't move the ball down the field. We're going to start to see teams bring 8, 9, 10 guys in the box. I'm joking with 10, but bring a lot of guys in the box if Kirk Cousins can't beat them deep like he used to. And he's a sitting duck. He's not moving out of the pocket the way he used to. So expect defenses to tee off on him there the same way TJ Watt did. Ray McCloud led this team in receiving yards with 52 on Sunday, 4 catches for him. Bijan added 5 catches for 43 yards in the air. He had 68 on the ground. Kyle Pitts, 3 for 26 and a touchdown. Drake London, 2 for 15. Just an absolute mess in Atlanta, and they lose this game to the Steelers 18-10. Justin Fields, they didn't really ask him to do much. He was 17 of 23, 156 yards. He looked okay. He had a nice throw to George Pickens on the sideline towards the end of the game. A couple of nice throws, I should say, but for the most part, this was the Najee Harris show. They gave him 20 carries, 70 yards, averaged 3.5. Fields added 57 yards on the ground. Cordell Patterson got involved, 4 rushes for 13 yards. Jalen Warren, 2 for 7. George Pickens somehow ended the day with 1 carry for negative 10 yards, which is just really difficult to do. He also added 85 yards in the air, though, so he made up for it there. 6 catches for him. Freiermuth, 4 catches for 27 yards. Jalen Warren, 2 for 13. This offense is going to revolve around the running game. They're going to give Najee 20-plus carries a game. They're going to ask Justin Fields to do less in the air. Cordell Patterson's going to be a big part of the run game. Jalen Warren's going to be a big part of the run game. Outside of George Pickens, and even George Pickens, I don't feel great about him. But outside of George Pickens, there is no part of this pass game that I want. And with the run game, as long as Najee Harris is the bell cow, which it looks like he is in the Arthur Smith offense here, um, yeah, I want no part of Jalen Warren. Obviously, no part of Patterson. To me, if you're a Najee Harris owner, you're feeling pretty good. If you're a George Pickens owner, you're feeling okay. Justin Fields didn't look great, but week 2, they're going to Denver. So a chance for this offense to really take off and improve off of their decent week 1 performance that I believe led to 5 field goals for their kicker, something crazy. So, yeah, not a whole lot for the Steelers. We'll see how they respond there. And for Atlanta, I mean, you have to hope that that Kirk Cousins figures it out, because he has to go to Philadelphia week 2 on Monday night. In Philadelphia, they're going to be hungry coming off that Brazil game, finally home opener. That defense might tee off on Kirk. So again, another good streamer on defense. But yeah, I feel for Kirk Cousins. That's got to be tough to be the new guy in town and not feel like your old self, and having that stud rookie Michael Penix kind of breathing down your neck. And we'll go to the next game here, which is the Houston Texans at Indianapolis. One of the best games of the week. It was, in my opinion, the best quarterback duel of the day. We had Anthony Richardson throwing absolute bombs. CJ Stroud looked good. He didn't even need to do that much in this game, but it was really the Joe Mixon show. Joe Mixon gets 30 carries, 159 yards rushing for him, and a touchdown. It could have been even more. Tank Dell added 2 rushes for 19 yards. CJ Stroud, 234 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Nico Collins, 6 for 117. Tank Dell, 3 for 40. Steph Diggs caught 6 passes for 33 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Mixon added 3 for 19 in the air as well. If you have any of these 3 wide receivers, you're feeling pretty good. Obviously, with Tank Dell only having the 3 catches for 40 yards, that's not great, but 7 targets, you'll take that. Chances are, if he gets 7 targets on any given week, he's going to pop more often than not. So you like to see that. Nico Collins, 6 for 117. That's great. To me, he was always the number 1 wide receiver for Houston here. And then Steph Diggs, interesting to see him being used more in the slot. 6 for 33 yards, averaging 5.5 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns. It seems like they're going to use him all over the field, but he's going to be CJ Stroud's security blanket and red zone target. So you don't feel great about that if you're a Nico Collins owner, manager, but I think all 3 of these guys can bring fantasy value, and I think CJ Stroud can support 3 top 20, 25 wide receivers on any given week. But typically 2 of them will pop, 1 of them will be a dud most of the time when this offense is clicking, and that's kind of what you saw today with Nico and Steph going off and Tank having a mediocre game. And Joe Mixon, if you got him in the 3rd, 4th round, I think he even went as late as the 5th in a couple of drafts that I saw. You're feeling real good. He's the bell cow in a really good offense. He was always undervalued in the offseason for fantasy. I snagged him in one of my 2 leagues. I just, again, bet on the talent, but more often than not, you have to bet on the guy that's going to see the volume in a good offense. And that's exactly what we have here in Houston and Joe Mixon. For Indianapolis, Anthony Richardson had some moments where he looked absolutely unbeatable. And then he had some moments where he looked a bit amateur and missed some easy throws. He was inaccurate. Kind of a mixed bag. Everyone saw that throw where he kind of dropped back in the pocket. He slipped, barely got on his feet, and basically launched the ball 70 yards in the air to hit Alec Pierce deep in the end zone. Absolutely ridiculous throw. He's the only quarterback in the NFL that can make that. Maybe Josh Allen. Just a freak of nature. So he'll make those plays, but he also missed a couple of easy ones, missed A.D. Mitchell on a couple of touchdown passes. So if you have A.D. Mitchell, you're feeling really good about that rookie debut. Don't worry about his stat line. He had 1 catch for 2 yards. It could have easily been 3 for 60 and 2 touchdowns. So don't worry about that. Michael Pittman, 4 for 31. I'm nervous about him. He's going to be that short. He's going to be what Richardson looks for in the short routes, short to intermediate. not exactly what that offense is built around. They're going to take deep shots. They're going to run the ball. I don't know if Pittman is going to pay off wherever you drafted him this year. Ashton Doolin, all this guy does is produce one catch, 54 yards and a touchdown. He should be getting more snaps. They have a lot of wide receivers in Indy. Look for a team to trade with them at some point over the course of the season. And then Alec Pierce, 3 catches, 125 yards and a touchdown. Simply unsustainable. If you have Alec Pierce, trade him. I would not grab him on the waivers. He's a fine player to sit on your bench. He's going to have boom weeks, but he's going to have a lot of bust weeks. And this offense is going to be a little bit unpredictable in the passing game. So, yeah, great. Love to see it. 3 catches, 125 yards, but that's not going to happen again. So, not worried there. Josh Downs is coming back too, so he's going to have more competition with him. And AD Mitchell, like I said, that's the wide receiver I want in this offense. AD Mitchell's the guy. Richardson, 6 rushes, 56 yards and a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor, 16 rushes, 48 yards and a touchdown. He saved you that touchdown because he didn't do much at all yesterday or on Sunday. Yeah, I'm worried. If I'm a Jonathan Taylor owner, 3 yards per carry, Richardson's going to vulture some of those goal line touchdowns. He had one on Sunday, 56 yards and a touchdown for Richardson on the ground. So, yeah, I'm worried. If I'm a Jonathan Taylor owner, I'd be looking to trade him. This offense will be fine. Taylor will have very big weeks, but he's going to be difficult to trust. And you didn't draft him in the first or second round for boom bust weeks. He should be a more reliable player at that draft cost. So Anthony Richardson, like what I saw, I'm not going to go crazy about him in fantasy. He is a top 4, maybe top 3 quarterback every week. In real life, he needs to prove a little bit more to me before I fully buy into what I saw there. Texans are going to host the Bears on Sunday Night Football in week 2. That's a really tough test, really good defense in Chicago. So I expect that to be a lower scoring game than this week in Indianapolis. So temper expectations there. And then for Indy, they go to Green Bay and they get to lick their chops at Malik Willis. So obviously Jordan Love is going to miss that game with his week 1 injury, which is too bad. But that's going to be a really good test for the Colts because that's a winnable game. They should take care of business. But it all depends on Shane Steichen's offense and the game plan around what's a pretty good defense in Green Bay. So that'll be interesting. Next game for us is Arizona Cardinals going to Buffalo. Almost pulled it out. The Bills win this game 34-28. Kyler looked okay. He was 21 for 31 passing, 162 yards and a touchdown. It could have been a much bigger passing day for him. He missed a couple of wide open receivers. I'm going to chalk this one up as just, a bit fluky. First week of the season for these guys. They're kind of working out some of those kinks, and he's getting used to having the new rookie, shiny new toy over there, Marvin Harrison Jr., trying to figure out how to use him. So I'm going to give him the pass. He added 57 yards rushing. James Conner, 50 yards on the ground and a touchdown. He looked great to me. The rookie, Trey Benson, 3 for 13. Keep your eyes on him. If Conner ever goes down, Benson's an immediate RB1, in my opinion. Greg Dortch led the team in catches and receiving yards, 6 for 47 out of him. James Conner, 3 for 33. Trey McBride, 5 for 30. I mean, listen, if you drafted McBride in the 5th round, look at the rest of the tight ends that went around, around 5, 6, 7, around that range. It was a tough week all around for all tight ends week 1. Don't worry about it. Much bigger days ahead for McBride. If you're trading McBride, I want to buy him. So I'm buy low on McBride on a lot of these guys that had a down week 1. Do not sell low. And Marvin Harrison Jr., he was a fade for me all offseason. He was going way too high in drafts. Love the talent. He's going to have spike weeks. He's going to have big games. That's just, we were expecting way too much out of him. He didn't look good either. The eye test, he did not pass the eye test. He looked a little sloppy in his routes. He looked slow. He looked sluggish, indecisive. He had one bad drop early on in the game that went right back to him and got him a 4-yard reception just to kind of, get his morale up. So It is what it is. Rookie debuts are difficult. Much better days ahead for Marvin Harrison. I would not be selling low on him. Hold him for now. If you do have someone selling on Marvin, try to buy low. Better days ahead, but he was always a bad pick at ADP this offseason. And for the Bills, more of the same for Josh Allen. Just utter domination, 18 of 23, 232 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He did it on the ground too. 39 yards rushing, 2 TDs for him on the ground. James Cook, 19 of 71. That's such a James Cook stat line. 3.7 yards per carry. Ray Davis is coming. He is the running back I want to own in that offense. It's going to become a 50-50 split before you realize it. So trade James Cook before it gets to that point and his value and worth drops anymore. Keon Coleman, that's a great rookie debut for him. 4 catches, 51 yards. He looked good. Could have been much bigger day for him. Khalil Shakir has the touchdown there, 3 for 42 yards. Mac Hollins with the other TD out of the wide receiver group, 2 for 25 for him. And then Cook added 32 yards receiving on 3 catches. So he did a little something there, but I want to talk about Dalton Kincaid. Again, do not worry, 1 for 11. If you watch this game and you go back and watch some of the tape, they were bracketing him. They had 3, 4. There's even one clip where there's 5 Cardinals defenders surrounding Kincaid. It was so clear, so obvious. That was their game plan. Take the tight end out of it. Not worried at all. They paid for it. The other wide receivers were eating. Josh Allen was seeing this early on. He knew they were taking away his top weapon. Kincaid's going to be the focal point of that passing game. So if teams take him away, there's nothing you can do. Josh Allen's going to beat you a million other ways. It's death by 100 paper cuts. So, yeah, he's, to me, don't freak out. Dalton Kincaid's a great buy low candidate. If you have a league mate who's panicking after a poor week 1, I am not one of those guys. I have Dalton Kincaid on both of my rosters. I love him. I think he's going to have a monster season. And the Bills get to go to Miami for Thursday night football. Nothing like kicking off the season with a Thursday night game right after that bloodbath against Arizona. That was a very physical game, very close one. So we'll see how the Bills respond. That's not easy. Josh Allen has a left hand injury. It's not his throwing hand, so not worried about it. But at the same time, the Dolphins are a tough matchup. I could see this game going either way. I'd be a little worried if I was a Bills fan, but I think they can take care of business in Miami. I think for Arizona, they get to host the Rams. The Rams are a little dinged up. They lost Puka Nacua. They lost a couple of offensive linemen. I can see the Cardinals winning this game at home. I think it's a good bounce back for them. The Rams defense is clearly beatable. The Lions are much better than the Cardinals, so you can't compare the two. But again, Rams are coming in injured. They brought a ton of energy to that Lions game. When you lose a game like that, it's really hard to get it back up for game 2. So I expect the Cardinals to beat the brakes off the Rams in this one. I would target all of my Cardinals: Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, James Conner, Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson. They're all going to go off in week 2. I'm telling you right now, start your Cardinals. The next game on our slate here, Tennessee Titans, Chicago Bears. Bears barely pulled this one off, 24-17. If you watch this game, the Titans had them on the ropes. It felt like they were going to win this game. Will Levis had a terrible, horrendous interception late, and the Bears squeaked this one out. It was the rookie debut of Caleb Williams. We'll get to him in a minute, but Will Levis, kind of a mixed bag here. He didn't look great. 19 of 32, 127 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 INTs. Could have been even worse, to be honest. Tony Pollard was the one bright spot in this offense, 82 yards on the ground and a touchdown for him. He also added 3 for 12 in the passing game. Tajay Spears didn't really do much, 4 for 21 on the ground. He was efficient with his touches, but not a lot of opportunity there. Calvin Ridley, only 3 for 50 on the receiving end. Tyler Boyd, 3 for 18 in his debut with the Titans. Chico Okonkwo, the tight end over there, had an amazing grab, reached right over the cornerback, basically mossed him in the end zone, 2 for 15 for him and the touchdown. So the key takeaway is the running backs here. No one knew how that split was going to look. They've said all offseason it's going to be giving it to the hot hand. The hot hand was clearly Pollard. He finishes the day as the clear RB1. I think there's going to be some weeks where Tajay Spears goes off as well, but to me, that's going to be really tough to predict. So if I have either one of these guys, I don't feel great, but I feel a lot better if I'm a Tony Pollard manager than I am a Tajay Spears manager this morning. And then for Chicago, Caleb Williams, there's really no way uh, uh, to kind of dance around it. He didn't look very good. I wouldn't say he looked terrible, but as a rookie quarterback, we have to give him a pass that first week. The Titans defense is pretty good. I don't know if they're elite or as elite as he made them look, but I'm going to give him the pass. I don't think this is indicative of who he is as a passer. I think he was trying to do too much, and it showed. DeAndre Swift, 10 carries for 30 yards. Caleb Williams added 15 yards on the ground. DJ Moore had one rush for 14 yards. Nothing else there really in the running game. On the receiving side of things, really interesting. Again, when you're getting 93 passing yards out of your quarterback, nobody's really going to go off in the wide receiver room. DJ Moore, 5 catches for 36 yards. Keenan Allen, 4 for 29. He got dinged up in this one. Rome Odunze, 1 for 11. Looks like he's got a little knee injury out of this game. So the Bears are dinged up. They won this game, but they paid the price. We'll see what they do coming out of this. I'm still going to, again, give them the pass. I'm in on DJ Moore. I'm in on Rome Odunze. I'm in on Caleb Williams. Although I do think this is going to be more of a run-heavy offense, a slower-paced offense, maybe not as much fantasy success as we were expecting when we saw Caleb in the preseason. But certainly some brighter days ahead. And listen, they got the win, so end of the day, they're 1-0. They're feeling pretty good. And again, tough test. They're going to Houston in week 2. This is going to be Sunday Night Football. So Caleb Williams and the bright lights. Yeah, it's not going to be easy, but I think it's going to look a little bit better than it did against Tennessee. And for the Titans, you are going to host the very angry New York Jets in week 2. So really tough matchups for both these teams. I think they both lose in week 2, but really interested to see how Caleb bounces back, even though it was a win. The next game on our slate, Jacksonville going to Miami. This was a great game. Miami ended up squeaking this one out 20-17. Of course, the thing that everyone's talking about going into this game, Tyreek Hill gets detained. I believe it was a traffic violation. I think he was speeding. Guy is literally handcuffed on the ground just hours before kickoff, and he goes out and he just balls. Monster game. It could have been even bigger. He had 7 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown. He could have had 2 touchdowns. He could have had 200 yards. The guy's a freak of nature. In redraft, if you're doing the drafts again, you're probably taking Tyreek in the top 5, maybe in the top 3. It was a mistake letting him get to the bottom half of the first round, which is where I saw him in a couple of drafts. So love to see it. Hate to see what happened in the pregame. I'm not going to comment on any of that stuff. Always like to let the facts come out first before responding and jumping to any conclusions that I know a lot of people are doing right now. So we'll wait and see how that all plays out. But I think Tua looked good, 338 yards passing and a touchdown, 23 of 37 for him. Jeff Wilson Jr., 5 carries for 26 yards. Achane was the story here. He only had 10 for 24 on the ground, but he also had a touchdown rushing, and they used him a lot in the passing game. 7 for 76. You love to see it. To me, he should have always been a first-round draft pick in fantasy. He was slipping because of Mostert, and we heard all offseason that Achane was going to be used more in the passing game this season. So I think it was a mistake letting him fall to the second round. I really wanted to take him in the first round. I ended up going with Garrett Wilson with my first-round pick, and then I missed out on Achane later on. So again, really, really like what I saw. Both running backs are dinged up. Mostert's going to miss the Thursday night game against Buffalo this week. Achane's questionable. I think he plays, and he probably will have a big workload in that one, even though he's dinged up. And then Jalen Waddle, 5 for 109. He looked really good. Obviously, the Robin to Tyreek Hill's Batman, but there's going to be games when Jalen Waddle puts up 130 and a touchdown as well. So those two guys look like great picks. They're going to be dealing with injuries throughout the season just because they are smaller, hamstrings. They have that history. But when they play, you start them, and when they play full games, this is the kind of stat line that you're going to see. So not even a really good game by the Miami offense, and they still produced. But can't wait to see what they do against the Bills, and that's going to be fireworks on Thursday Night Football. Pretty good Thursday Night Football, by the way. We kick off the season with Ravens Chiefs, and then week 2 we get Bills Dolphins. That's not too bad. And I was looking at the Thursday Night Football schedule for this season. It's one of the best by the NFL. So kudos to the schedule makers over there at the NFL. And then for the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, 12 of 21 passing, 162 yards and a touchdown. He wasn't really asked to do that much. They kept it on the ground. Tank Bigsby, 12 for 73. Travis Etienne, 12 for 44 and a touchdown. Could have had two, should have had two. Fumbled at the 1 yard line or inches to go. And it basically cost them the game. So not what you want to see if you're a Travis Etienne owner, and definitely what you want to see if you're a Tank Bigsby owner. I mean, 12 for 73, averaging over 6 yards a carry. He looked really good. Talk about the eye test. If you don't know anything about football and you're watching this game, you would have assumed Tank Bigsby is the RB1 and Travis Etienne was the pass catcher or change of pace back. Don't be surprised if this backfield becomes more of a 50-50 split sooner rather than later. Although I do think, based on what Doug Peterson has said and what he's done in the past, he's going to give Etienne another shot. It's not like this is immediately a 50-50 backfield. I think Etienne is still the guy there, but hey, he's had fumbling issues. He's had some injuries in the past. It's not going to take much for this coaching staff to turn to Bigsby, who they drafted. So, pretty high draft capital too with him. I forget if he was 3rd or 4th round, but we'll see. And then for the wide receiver group, I think the key here is Brian Thomas Jr. Clearly the number 1 wide receiver for Jacksonville. He looks like the alpha. His comp coming out of college was DK Metcalf. He looks like a freak of nature. 4 for 47 and a touchdown for him. His touchdown in the left corner of the end zone was one of the best passes of the day. Trevor Lawrence looked off the safety, floated it over the cornerback. Perfectly placed ball, led him beautifully. Corner of the end zone, Brian Thomas did the rest, toe tap. Just a great play. Christian Kirk is the one who is going to feel the brunt of Brian Thomas taking over as that lead dog. 1 for 30 for Kirk on the day. I think he had 1 drop, maybe even 2. Did not look good, did not look comfortable. Gabe Davis, 3 for 62. He looked better. And Evan Ingram, 1 for 5. Again, the elite tight ends, or at least those top 10 tight ends at fantasy, didn't produce week 1. Not worried about it. Evan Ingram's going to get his. Christian Kirk will have better games, but again, Brian Thomas Jr., if you don't have him on your roster, try to trade for him. If you do have him on your roster, he should probably be a set it and forget it starter every single week, starting with this week against the Browns as Jacksonville hosts Cleveland. And then for Miami, I touched on it. For Miami, I touched on it before. They're playing Buffalo Thursday Night Football. Obviously, you don't like the short week. Mostert's going to be out, but for me, you start your studs. Tyreek, Waddle, Achane, they're all in your lineup, so don't overthink that one. Denver at Seattle is the next game. Seattle, they looked better. They certainly deserved to win the game, but man, that was closer than it should have been. 6 points does not kind of tell the story there, but they started a little bit slow, and I think they paid for it in the end. So let's start with Bo Nix, the rookie quarterback from Oregon. He threw 42 times. There's no way the Denver Broncos want him throwing the ball 42 times, or anyone throwing the ball 42 times. This is a run-first offense. It's built around the run game. So, if they don't get the run game going, it's going to look like this. 138 yards passing for Nix, 2 INTs. He added 35 yards on the ground, had 1 touchdown. So he kind of saved his fantasy day there, sort of, if you have him in a deeper league or, super flex. Jaleel McLaughlin looked better than Javonte. They both looked pretty bad on the ground, 10 for 27 for Jaleel. Javonte had 8 for 23, so both under 3 yards a carry. Estimate 2 for 14. he looked better, but now he's going on IR with an ankle injury, I believe. So we're not going to see him for a couple more weeks. On the receiving side of things, Devon Vele, he looked pretty good. He's the rookie, 8 catches for him. He led the team in receptions, 39 yards. So we want to see, some more shots down the field with Vele. But if he's the short yardage guy, Bo Nix certainly will mesh with him there. So love to see that. Cortland Sutton, 4 for 38. I've been out on Sutton the entire offseason. Terrible fit. I mean, he might have a couple of big games, but Bo Nix is not going to latch on to a guy like that. It's going to be all short and intermediate routes. So unless Sutton is running 30 slant routes every game, he's not going to see the kind of targets that he did last season or the year before that. So to me, keep your eye on the backfield. I want Jaleel McLaughlin right now. Give Javonte Williams one more week. I don't think this was a fair game to kind of judge and critique this offense. It was kind of out of hand early on, and a couple of bad turnovers by Bo Nix that really hurt the offense. And for Seattle, I mean, rough start. Geno looked terrible. He didn't look great the whole game, but he looked better in the second half. They really got it going in the third quarter. They came out and they were firing on all cylinders. Geno finished with 171 yards passing, a touchdown, and an INT. But Kenneth Walker was the bell cow there. 20 carries, 103 yards rushing, averaged 5.2 yards per carry. 1 touchdown for him, 1 touchdown on the ground for Geno. Charbonnet added a touchdown in the air. And that was pretty much all they needed. Tyler Lockett, 6 for 77 in the air for him. DK Metcalf, only 3 catches for 29 yards. So better days ahead for DK. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba, who had one of the best cornerback matchups on the day, did not really do much with it. So a lot of that is Geno. Some of that is play calling and scheming him open. But for the most part, this is, they had their game plan was to run the ball. Once they got the lead, milk the clock a little bit. They knew that the Broncos couldn't keep up with them. So they really didn't need to air it out. And so better days ahead for JSN. But not what you want to see out of the gates if you drafted him late in your drafts, 2 for 19 yards receiving. So, again, good game, competitive. Maybe it looks closer than it actually was in the box score, but I think better days ahead for both of these teams. Denver is now going to host Pittsburgh in week 2. That's going to be a 4:30 game in Denver. I like their chances in that game, but at the same time, Pittsburgh's going to run the ball. It's going to be slow paced. It's probably going to be low scoring. That's a game I'm staying away from in Survivor, but for fantasy purposes, there's some stuff they can do, but look out. TJ Watt he looks like he's, refreshed, obviously early in the season, everyone is, but he's probably going to tee off on Bo Nix, and that's not who you want to see as a rookie in your second game there. So, something to keep an eye on. Seattle goes to New England. I think they should take care of business. That's tough flying west to east for the 1:00 games, but I like their chances. And I think New England's week 1 was a bit of a fluke. I think Cincinnati's not as good as people think. So I think the Seattle Seahawks come away with a win in that game. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for that one. And we're getting closer to the end here. Raiders and Chargers on the next one on my list. Gardner Minshew obviously gets the start for the Raiders. 25 of 33 for him, 257 yards passing, a touchdown, 1 INT. Zamir White, nothing on the ground, 13 for 44. Madison, 5 for 19, nothing for him, although he did have a nice touchdown on the receiving end, 4 for 43 for him in the air. Jacoby Myers led this team in receiving yards, 61 for him on 3 catches. Devontae Adams, 5 for 59. I've been out on Adams all off season. As long as Gardner Minshew is the starter, I do not want Devontae Adams on my roster. Tough to really trust. This is a brutal matchup week 1 for him. The Chargers have a good defense and a good secondary, so better days ahead. But 5 for 59 is kind of what I would expect for the most part from Devontae Adams. He may have a touchdown here or there, but he's going to be a touchdown dependent wide receiver too, as long as Minshew's under center. Brock Bowers, love to see that debut. 6 for 58 for him. That's really solid. Minshew was latching on to him. So I think Bowers is going to have a nice season. So if you drafted him late, um, especially in tight end premium leagues, you're looking really good right now. And then for the Chargers, I mean, exactly what we thought. They're going to be run heavy. J.K. Dobbins, 10 for 135. He looked like vintage J.K. Dobbins. Hopefully he stays healthy. He has the touchdown. Looked good in the passing game. Gus Edwards, 11 for 26. He looked horrendous. So to me, it's J.K. Dobbins' job to lose. And the only way he loses it is if he gets hurt, because he looks great. And a few of those long runs, he started to kind of get gassed at the very end, and defender caught him from behind. So could have been even bigger. Could have had 150, 160 yards rushing. But and we'll see that, he'll get healthier as the season goes on, and get stronger as the season goes on. I shouldn't say healthier, but yeah. So if you drafted J.K. Dobbins, he's a borderline league winner at this point. And then Ladd McConkey in that receiver room, he's the one receiver I've wanted in that offense all offseason. People talked about Justin Herbert's guy is Ladd McConkey. He clearly led the team in receiving yards, receptions. He had the one touchdown, 5 for 39 for him. So to me, that's a slam dunk pick if you got him in the 10th, 11th, 12th round. He's a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside right now. I think he's very close to becoming a every week starter with wide receiver 2 and some wide receiver 1 weeks, a lot of upside there. But again, it's going to be capped just because of how much this offense throws or how little they throw. So you want the run game. Great offensive line, a good quarterback that's going to keep the defense honest. The Raiders defense is solid. So for J.K. Dobbins to run all over them like that says something. So really like what I see out of the Chargers. In week 2 going to Carolina. They're going to keep it going. It's going to be the J.K. Dobbins show in Carolina. And I think Herbert airs it out a little bit too. So Carolina, they can't stop anything. You saw what the Saints did to them. So the Chargers are going to march all over them. Love the Chargers in that game. And then the Raiders go to Baltimore. So good luck with that. You're going to have an angry Baltimore team with their home opener. That's going to be the big Derrick Henry game. Expect multiple touchdowns from him in week 2. And the Raiders are going to really struggle against that defense. That's a bad matchup for Las Vegas. Excuse me. So getting towards the end here, we have the Browns hosting the Cowboys. I think the one thing we have to take away from this game, not a lot from the Cowboys because it just wasn't competitive from the jump, but for the Cleveland Browns, I mean, you have to start that Jameis Winston watch, right? It's like I don't know how many chances we're going to give Deshaun Watson. I don't think many of us like the guy as a person. He seems like a really crummy person. So pretty easy to root against him when he's on the field, based on what we know. I'm not a Cowboys fan. I'm a Giants fan, so feels weird saying this, but I was not rooting for Watson on Sunday, and he looked terrible. So I don't know if it's mental with him or physical, but missed throws, missed reads. He's just a bad fit for this offense. They're going to turn to Jameis Winston really soon. So I would expect that to happen in the next 3 or 4 weeks. I think let's see how they fare in week 2. I believe they have the Jaguars, or I'm sorry, they're going to Jacksonville to face the Jaguars week 2. So if the Jags spank them, which they shouldn't, the Browns should probably win that game, or it should at least be close. But if the Jags spank them, don't be surprised if we see Jameis Winston in week 3. And then, I mean, Jerome Ford did what Jerome Ford does. 12 for 44 for him on the ground and a touchdown. Love to see that. David Njoku leaves the game with a high ankle injury. I think it was a high ankle sprain. He's going to go on the IR. 4 for 44 for him. But, man, that's a tough loss for that offense. Jerry Jeudy, 3 for 25 and a touchdown. He's going to see more work with Njoku out. But they have Jordan Akins there to fill in for Njoku in the tight end spot. So he'll be perfectly fine. Amari Cooper, 2 for 19. I mean, Deshaun missed him on at least one wide open would-be touchdown, pass. So not totally on Amari, but again, as long as he's tied to this offense and Deshaun Watson, any receiver in Cleveland, but especially Amari Cooper, I want no part of. So if they turn to Jameis, this offense will open up. I want Amari. I want Jerry Jeudy, Njoku when he's back. All of their value goes through the roof because Jameis is fearless. He's got the right mentality. He's a leader. This team will take a major step forward. They really shouldn't hesitate. I would pull the plug on Watson now. I would have pulled it last year. So they're making a huge mistake, kind of doubling down. But Dallas, it looks great. Dak gets paid right before the game, gets the extension, throws for 180 yards and a touchdown. Zeke, 40 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Rico Dowdle, only 8 for 26. Better days ahead for him. Brandon Cooks, he looks solid, 4 for 40 and a touchdown. He added 5 yards on the ground. CeeDee Lamb, 5 for 61. Better days ahead for Lamb. He got paid also in the offseason. So I expect better days ahead for all the Cowboys in terms of fantasy stats. This game was out of hand early. The Cowboys didn't need to do much. They just kind of milked the clock with Zeke. So they've got the Saints in week 2 at home. So that'll be a test for them, but I think they take care of business. And then for Cleveland, like I said, going to Jacksonville, let's see. That should be a competitive game. They probably should win that game if they lose, and especially if they lose badly. Look out. Let's start that Jameis watch because it's certainly coming. Next game is Commanders at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay looked really good. And for the most part, that's thanks to Baker Mayfield. We all thought Dave Canales leaving Tampa Bay, who kind of resurrected Baker's career there. He goes to Carolina. We all thought, that's gonna be a tough loss. It's a big loss for Baker. Not so much. 289 yards passing for Baker, 4 touchdowns, 24 of 30. He looked crisp. He was, he's climbing the pocket, going through his reads. To me, Baker looks about as good as he ever has. And if he stays healthy and those wide receivers stay healthy, look out because they've got a lot of weapons and they've got a new shiny toy, Jalen McMillan, the rookie from Washington. He had 1 catch for 32 yards. It was a touchdown. He could have had 3 catches for 90 yards and 3 touchdowns. So could have been a monster game for him. 1 for 32. We'll take that rookie debut. If he's still on your waiver wire, pick him up. He is going to be a big part of this offense. They run a lot of 3 wide sets, and God forbid if something happens to Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, McMillan's going to fill right in. So love him. Godwin, 8 for 83 and a touchdown in that Cooper Kupp slot role. Love to see that. He's going to be a star this season. Mike Evans, 5 for 61, 2 touchdowns. Mike Evans doing Mike Evans things. That's such a Mike Evans stat line. And then the run game. I'm huge on Bucky Irving. He's been the one rookie running back I want all offseason. I've been saying that. He's one of my favorite rookie running backs, one of the best pass blockers coming out of this rookie group. Fantastic pass catcher, great runner, perfect fit for this offense. And Rachaad White looked terrible. 15 for 31 for White on the ground, averaging just over 2 yards a carry. Bucky Irving, 9 for 62, averaging almost 7 yards a carry. And if you just watch this game, similar to Jacksonville with Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne, Bucky Irving looked like the starter. He looked like the 1A to Rachaad White's 1B. Rachaad White did add 6 catches for 75 yards in the air, so he's always going to be a factor in the passing game. But to me, Tampa Bay won this game, so they're not going to switch it up too much, but it's not going to be long before this is also a 50-50 backfield split. And I think it's going to trend towards favoring Bucky Irving, especially in the early downs. He looked a lot better, a lot crisper. He was decisive, elusive, some nice broken tackles. So love to see it. Baker, this whole offense, the Buccaneers, they looked really good. Now, part of that reason was a horrendous Commanders defense. So, we can't give all the credit to the Buccaneers. They had a cakewalk for the week 1 there. But on the Commander side of things, Jaden Daniels, 17 of 24, 184 yards passing, 88 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns for him. So that saved his fantasy day, but he didn't look great to me. Okay, rookie debut. From an NFL standpoint, he didn't look good. From a fantasy standpoint, you're really happy. I believe he had 30 fantasy points in most standard scoring leagues. So love to see that. Brian Robinson Jr., clearly the lead back there, 12 for 40 and a touchdown. Austin Eckler, 2 for 10, not really much there on the ground, but he added 4 for 52 in the air. Luke McCaffrey looked good as a rookie, 3 for 18 for him. Terry McLaurin, 2 for 17, better days ahead. Again, like week one, don't overreact for most of these guys. There are things that we can take away, but there's a lot of times reason for optimism and preaching patience here with the studs. So don't overreact to this one. But overall, I mean, decent things for the Commanders. If you're a Commanders fan, you're feeling pretty good this morning. It looks like you have your franchise guy. You just need him to develop a little bit more of a passing game here. Week two, Buccaneers now have to go to Detroit. So again, going from a secondary like Washington to a front seven in a secondary like Detroit. In Detroit, good luck to them. That's going to be brutal. Now, Washington, they get to host the Giants week two. So for them, it gets a little bit easier. And so hopefully they can open things up in the passing game. And that brings us to the Sunday night game, the Rams and the Lions. I'm going to get a quick drink because my throat is dry. The Rams and the Lions. Listen, one of the games of the week, if not the game of the week, this one went to overtime. It had fireworks. It had great running. It had great passing, great play calling, good coaching, had everything. So let's start on the Lions side of things. They were my pick to go to the Super Bowl this year. I had them losing to Kansas City. I think I should have had them winning. This team looks so complete. They're so deep. They can beat you on all levels of the field. Jared Goff didn't even have a big game. 18 of 28, 217 yards, a touchdown, and INT. He didn't really need to. They didn't need him to do too much. So they leaned on the ground game. Excuse me. David Montgomery, 17 carries for 91 yards and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, 11 for 40 and a touchdown. Jamison Williams added one rush for 13 yards, but he also had 5 catches, 121 receiving yards, and a touchdown. He was the guy I was banging my fist on the table for all offseason. You had to give him more work, more volume. All we heard from the coaching staff was that this guy was doing it. He understood he was getting it, understood the playbook. It felt like he was going to take that year two leap and jump into some of those elite wide receivers that he was drafted with. So love to see that. Montgomery, like I said, looked good on the ground, 91 yards and a touchdown. Not really used too heavily in the passing game, 1 catch for 2 yards there. Whereas Jahmyr Gibbs, 40 yards on the ground and a touchdown, but he also had 4 catches for 34 yards in the air. So, both of these guys are startable every week. One of them will probably have spikes here and there, and the other one has a very safe floor. So if you roster both of these guys, you can trot them out every week and expect one of them to return RB1 value with the other one having a pretty safe RB2 floor. So really like that. With Sam Laporta, don't worry about that. 4 for 45 yards for him. Better days ahead. They just didn't need him in this one. And same with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm a little worried. 3 for 13 for him. Now that Jameson has proven that he can handle more, he's going to get more work, which means he's going to take some of that target share away from Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I'm worried from the standpoint of there are going to be games when he's game script dependent. Maybe they get a lead and they run the ball. There's going to be other games when they need to pass, but there's so many mouths to feed. Someone is not going to always eat. That worries me. If I'm a St. Brown owner and you took him in the first round, which is what you would have to do to acquire him, that's a tough pill to swallow. If you're a Jamison Williams drafter and you have him on your roster, you're feeling really good because you could get him as late as the 9th, even 10th round in some drafts. So he looks fantastic. But yeah, as a whole, I want any piece of that Lions offense. They look really good. And they did it against a tough Rams defense. They brought it on offense. Stafford had 317 yards passing, threw the ball 49 times. That is not something they want him doing. 1 touchdown, 1 INT for him. Kyron Williams looked like dust, 18 carries for 50 yards. He did get the touchdown to save his fantasy day, but he averaged 2.8 yards per carry. Ronnie Rivers was the backup here. A lot of people expected Blake Corum. It will be Blake Corum. If anything happens to Kyron Williams, even if something doesn't happen to Kyron Williams, Blake Corum is the guy you want. If you rostered Blake Corum, do not drop him. If you don't have Blake Corum and he's a free agent, pick him up. If you don't have Blake Corum and someone else has him, make him a low ball trade offer. I want Blake Corum. This offense is good. Kyron Williams does not look good. He's injury prone. Ronnie Rivers is not the answer at running back for them. So it's going to be Blake Corum. So just do it. You can thank me in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whenever it is that he takes over as the lead back there. It's going to pay dividends immediately. But the story for this offense is Cooper Kupp. Puka Nacua entered the season with an injury. Greg Rosenthal, I believe it was, came on just before the season and said, if you're doing fantasy drafts, I would not draft this guy. Don't touch him. Can't really say more than that, but knee doesn't look good, yada, yada. I heard that. A lot of the fantasy community heard that and pivoted to Cooper Kupp. That was the right move. I got Cooper Kupp in one of my 2 leagues. He should have been going in the first round all off season. There was nothing that was really telling us otherwise. All we heard was good reports. He looks like the old Cooper Kupp, and he clearly was. 14 catches in this one for him, 110 receiving yards and a touchdown. I think he had something crazy like 22 targets. So the volume is going to go down a little bit, although not too much because Puka Nacua is now going on the IR with his knee injury. Hate to see that. Keep an eye on Tyler Johnson. 5 for 79 in this one. He looked really good. Demarcus Robinson had 4 for 42. And then they have that rookie Jordan Whittington there as well. But to me, it's Tyler Johnson. So if you don't have Cooper Kupp, if you have Puka Nacua and you now have to move him to the IR and you need to pick up a wide receiver, Tyler Johnson is that guy. He just passed the eye test to me, and he's done it before. So we've seen that production. He looks like the second wide receiver to own on that roster. And for the Rams, they get to go to Arizona for week 2. So maybe a bounce back game for them. I think Arizona handles business. Like I said, that's a letdown game for the Rams because coming off of this one, a lot of energy in that Detroit game, high emotions. They lost a couple of key players on the O-line to injury, a couple of defensive players dealing with some injuries, and then Puka Nacua going down. We'll see how they respond. It's a Sean McVay team, so I think they're going to bring it. And it's not a long travel day for them going to Arizona. But, man, that's not exactly the team you want to be playing, as they're going to be the Cards are going to be a little heated after that Bills loss on Sunday. So tough draw for them. That should be fireworks, a lot of offense for sure. And then the Lions are now hosting the Buccaneers. So again, not an easy matchup, but I expect the Lions to take care of business there in what should be one of, if not the highest scoring game of week 2. And then our final game for this week is the New York Jets going to the San Francisco 49ers. We found out maybe it was 2 or 3 hours before kickoff that CMC was a last minute scratch. And so I mentioned in the offseason, what happens is, and I'll break this down for everyone because people were up in arms. What happens is in the offseason, teams do not have to provide injury reports, official injury reports. So not until they get to through that final preseason game and into that first official practice week of the season, and then they have to provide official injury reports. And that's when we all found out that Christian McCaffrey was dealing with an Achilles / a calf injury. At first, it was just sore calf. He's going to be fine. I saw the Achilles added to the injury report, and I immediately tweeted, whoa, that is not the same as a sore calf. So turns out it is not the same as a sore calf, and he's dealing with, I believe, Achilles tendonitis, something like that. So that's going to linger. I think he's going to play in week 2. If he does play, he's not going to get the full workload, but he's a gamer. He wants to be out there. They're going to be smart, though. This is a team with championship aspirations. Jordan Mason clearly can do it all. And if I'm a Christian McCaffrey owner, forget about the injury. That alone would have infuriated me as a McCaffrey manager. But now you see Jordan Mason do it to this extent, proving that he can be the guy against a really tough Jets defense. Look out, because this may become more of a split backfield, and the Niners would be smart to do that. Why would you run McCaffrey into the ground early in this season, a longer season? again, a team with championship aspirations. To me, I'm worried if I'm a McCaffrey owner, I'm trying to trade him, sell him before his value dips anymore, and I am not buying him. I would not try to, you know, sure, if you can buy low on McCaffrey, go for it, but I'm not, I'm not trading Garrett Wilson for Christian McCaffrey straight up right now. No chance. So um, for the Niners, Brock Purdy doesn't need to do too much in this one. 19 of 29, 231 yards passing, no touchdowns. He had one that was in the hands of Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk dropped it. That's what happens when you don't practice in the offseason. I don't know if you guys saw Peyton Manning's spiel on Monday Night Football, but he went off on Ayuk and ultimately said exactly that. That's what happens when all you're worried about is your contract and you don't get those practice reps and you're not out there in preseason action or in camp. So he's right. That's what happens. Knock the rust off. Ayuk's going to be fine going forward. But yeah, Purdy could have had an even better game. So it's all on the ground though. Jordan Mason, 147 yards rushing on 28 carries and a touchdown. Debo added a touchdown himself, 23 yards on the ground for him. Juwan Jennings leads this team in receptions and yards, 5 for 64. Debo, 5 for 54. Kittle, 4 for 40. That's a very Kittle line, especially in a game when they manhandled the Jets 32-19. So pretty much what you would expect there. That offense is going to be fine. I'm worried if I'm a McCaffrey owner. If I'm a Jordan Mason owner, hold on to him for one more week. After that, I would consider selling high only because he will be splitting with McCaffrey. There's going to be weeks when McCaffrey probably has to sit dealing with this injury. So you can look at it that way. But for me, take advantage of this hot start, see if you can sell high on him. But he should be a thing for the rest of the season. Mason will be a part of this offense. It's just he won't be a bell cow unless McCaffrey is fully out of the lineup. And then Debo, solid game for him. As long as McCaffrey's injured, his value goes up. When McCaffrey comes back, I think Debo still holds that wide receiver 2 floor, but that ceiling is going to be capped just a little bit. And then on the Jets side of things, they did exactly what I thought they would. They come out, they run the ball, take the ball out of Rodgers' hands. Last thing you want as a Jets fan is to see him get hurt again in the first few minutes of the game. But unfortunately, get down so fast they couldn't keep to the run. Although they did, they were still running the ball even down. I believe it was 16 points, 2 scores late in that game. So they stuck to the run. Breece Hall has a nice game, 16 for 54 on the ground for him and a touchdown. He added 5 catches for 39 yards in the receiving game. Allen Lazard was the wide receiver, of note in this one, 6 for 89 with 2 touchdowns, including one on kind of a vintage Aaron Rodgers, broken play, or not a broken play, but the defensive lineman went offside, so it was a free play, and took a deep shot. He kind of locked eyes with Lazard and threw it up there, and Lazard got free deep. So big game for Lazard. Don't expect that very often. Garrett Wilson, 6 for 60. We saw Rodgers go to him early, and he looked really good out of the gates, and then he just kind of stopped. It was a weird game. It was kind of a fluky game for the Jets. Much better days ahead for Garrett Wilson. Clearly, him and Rodgers have a connection. They're going to get on the same page more often than not. The Niners also looked really good, really fast on defense. So they were bringing the heat. So better days ahead for this offense as a whole, specifically for Garrett Wilson, and love to see what Breece Hall was doing there. So all around, great things ahead for both of these teams. And the Jets come out of that one pretty much unscathed in terms of injuries. So that was the ultimate goal for the Jets. They go to Tennessee in week 2. I think they beat the brakes off of the Titans. Look for the Jets to bounce back in a major way in that one. And San Francisco going to Minnesota. That's going to be one of the best games of the week. A lot of offense there. Those are 2 pretty good defenses, if not great defenses. But I love the offenses, 2 great offensive minds, Kyle Shanahan, Kevin O'Connell. That should be a fantastic game. Can't wait to see Brandon Ayuk and Justin Jefferson, CMC, and Aaron Jones in that one. A lot of star power. So that wraps up week 1. Looking forward to week 2. I can't believe this is an hour and 30 minutes going now. Way longer than I thought it was going to be, but pretty cool. And I just again, this is the first time I've done the YouTube live, and it looks like we have some people in the chat. So apologies for not getting to you guys, and I can't even tell when you sent these, but we have from Chandler, Constantino, trade Olave for Henry. Absolutely. I love Derrick Henry this year. Do not worry about the light usage in week one. That was a tough game. He is going to be a bit game script dependent if the Ravens fall behind, which I don't think will be very often. They have a good defense, not a great defense, but a good defense. They're going to ride King Henry. And I'm not worried about Harbaugh saying they're not going to give him 30 carries. Yeah, not many teams do, aside from the Texans giving Mixon 30 carries in week one. We're not going to see that very often. It might happen 3 or 4 times throughout the course of the season, but Henry's going to be right around 20 carries every week, especially when the Ravens win. So love Henry. I do like Olave. I don't think he is necessarily a sell low. He's actually more of a buy low opportunity for me, but I'm not a huge fan of that New Orleans offense. Difficult to predict where the production is going to come from. And like I said before, I really like Rashid Shaheed. I think he's going to be the guy in that offense out of that wide receiver room. So better days ahead for Olave, but yes, straight up, I want Derrick Henry in that deal. If it's Chris Olave for Derrick Henry, I want Henry. Jonathan Vera asked, should I trade away CD for Gibbs, Waddle, and JK? I lost week one and lost Puka to IR. So you're trading away CD, you're getting Gibbs, Waddle, and JK. That is a instant smash accept for me. CeeDee Lamb is incredible. He might be the overall wide receiver one right now. He's set up to have a monster season, but Jahmyr Gibbs looks great. That's an RB1, a top 5 running back in fantasy. Jalen Waddle looks great. That offense is electric. He is a top 15 wide receiver, and there's going to be weeks when Jalen Waddle finishes in the top 5. And then J.K. Dobbins, I mean, love what I saw out of him. I'd be lying if I said I expected a full season of J.K. I think there's going to be points when he's dinged up and he has to miss time. But when he's starting, looking ahead specifically at week 2 against Carolina, no brainer for me. I'm accepting that trade 10 times out of 10. I want Gibbs, Waddle, and JK. And that's not like me. I usually want the best player in every trade, but that's a very fair trade. And I think you're getting the most value. Again, it depends on the rest of your roster. But if you lost Puka to the IR, I think that's an okay trade for you to make. Harry Shaft. Harry Shaft says, start Ayuk in my super flex, or should I go with Daniel Jones or Bryce Young? LOL. That is absolutely hilarious. So I'm going to skip that one. Appreciate it, Harry Shaft. And then Rolling Loud Highlights asked, I'm sorry, it's not a question. He's telling us that he got Cooper Kupp in the 5th round this year. Way to go, Rolling Loud Highlights. That's awesome. I got Kupp in the 3rd round this year, I think. So, but that was in my Syracuse league, and those guys are a bunch of idiots. So, yeah, that's awesome. Cool. I was not expecting the chat. Maybe I need to respond to these people in the chat here. Let's see if I can do it. I'll say Henry over Olave for me. And then Jonathan Vera trading away CD for Gibbs, Waddle, and JK. Trade away CD. And then Harry asking about Ayuk. Kupp is a league winner, guys. He's going to absolutely eat in that offense. Even if Puka comes back, and he will eventually come back. So I should say when Puka comes back, Kupp is going to be the guy. Monster season ahead. I would be trading Puka. That's an injury that's going to linger. even going on the IR, yeah, he might get healthier. He will get healthier, and he might be okay for the season, but he's not going to be the same player as he was his rookie year. And Kupp looks fantastic. As long as Stafford's the quarterback and McVay's there, that offense is going to be really, really good. Again, get Blake Corum. I can't say it enough. Go get Blake Corum. Find a way to get him. Kyron Williams is absolutely dust. He looks terrible. Corum's the guy you want in that offense, and you do want the running back in that offense. So awesome. Just over an hour and 30. Pretty cool that I got some engagement here in the chat, and looks like I got a couple likes on the live stream, so that's sweet. Appreciate it, guys. I'm going to end the stream. Hopefully this video posts. I have no idea, but we're going to find out together. And I'll do this. Hopefully I'll do this every week. Aiming to do this next week, but going to try to do it on Monday or Tuesday instead of Wednesday night, just so I can help you guys get your waiver claims in. But yeah, appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, do all of those things that help me grow my channel. Follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at Fantasy Umpire. And yeah, feel free to hit me with any questions you have. Sit, start, send me your lineup, ask me questions. I'm very active on Twitter, so hit me there. Let me know what you think. Give me some advice on how to grow the channel or to improve my weekly recaps. Appreciate it. And yeah, let's get ready for Thursday Night Football. Bills, Dolphins, baby. All right, see you guys.